Yeah, as I mentioned, um, today's topic is about attention and the strategies to boost attention from occupational therapy perspective. And um, to be honest, it's one of the most demanded topics. I remember many times that I had ran such workshops with the similar content or topic when I used to work back home in Iran, or even right now here in Canada. I have uh, provided or presented such lecture for at least 6 or 7 times. So actually, attention topic is the thing that when we want to talk about that, we feel that everyone knows at least a part of it. So if you are a clinician, maybe the families that come to you, they might have three main things to say about their children, and one of the top one is attention issue, attention and concentration. The other two ones most of the time is um, behavioral behaviors that the child manifest, and the other one is self-confidence. So actually, as for attention, behavior, and self-confidence, these three top and hottest topic um, that every practitioner will face it or faces on a very regular basis. Uh, we um, we have a lot of things to say or mention about, and we have a lot of techniques that we have acquired during the years of practice, how to work with children. But besides the activities or besides about the topics which are about what to do, the most important thing that I'm willing to share with you is my insight. And I want to spend the greatest deal of the time on insights or the thing that I have gained in my experience when working with children on their attention level. So we move forward, and the first topic is about what attention is really. What is attention in real? So uh, in a single term, attention means that you be present. Okay, so if you are present spiritually, mindfully, if all your senses are working as if you are present to the current moment and you are attending the event or situation, it means attention. So attending means that you have done everything not to miss anything, and the purpose is to be fully mindful and present in the situation. So attention in general is so. And there are several types of attention. So we should not mix them up with each other. For example, one side of attention is like a predator, like a, a lion in a forest. Just imagine a lion in a forest which is vigilantly hiding behind a bush and is watching for a gazelle. And that lion is fully mindful about the situation, is looking at the feet of the gazelle, the direction of the feet, the size of the gazelle, its proximity, the location, the nearby rocks, the weather, and all other friends of that gazelle in the forest. So the lion, besides starting the hunting plan, is utilizing some sign or some sort of attention, which we can say vigilance. Vigilance. As if that lion vigilantly is watching for the proper time to start hunting. So it is the way a lion keeps waiting for the best time to start attacking. Yes? So just imagine the lion that is going to go next to a river and want to drink water from the river. And knowingly, the gazelle is almost sure that there is a few alligators or crocodiles. There are a few alligators and crocodiles in the river hiding underneath the water. So it's a matter of life or death. The gazelle is thirsty to the death, so it needs to have water for sure. But on the other hand, when that gazelle is getting close by the coast or river, it is sure that the alligator is hiding underwater, so he should mindfully drink as much as water, as much as possible water. In the meantime, being mindful about any potential moment of attack from or by a crocodile. So you will see that in this scenario, gazelle has been involved in the process of flight and very mindful and very vigilant. So I have spoken about two important mechanisms, fight, the lion, and gazelle, which is going to flight or run away. There is another thing which is important as well, the third F. So I have pointed to two F's so far, fight and flight. Fight like the lion, which is going to hunt a gazelle and it needs attention, and flight for the gazelle to be mindful about the attack of the crocodile in the river, and it is flight. Okay, all systems are in service to do a proper flight actions. So fully attending, yes. And there is the third F, which is called freeze. So many of the retail rodents, the size of animals that are amongst the category of mammals, but are smaller size, they are called rodent, and many of them are the ones that when they see some eagle is flying over their head, they prefer to freeze like a rabbit. Have you seen the rabbits in your backyard or front yard that when you get close by them, they stop moving? And imagine that when they stop moving, you miss the target. That reaction of freeze is the third F that helps the survival of species. So they are important. You know why? Because these three F, fight, flight, and freeze, needs attention. And these three mechanisms are important for the survival. And there is no surprise that after many decades, many years, decades, and centuries, and thousand years of species evolution, okay, the genes that have more attention potential in themselves will be transferred to the next generation because the survival rate for those generations that have had that attention potential in themselves, okay, let them survive, let them reproduce, and then they will transfer those genes to the next generation. So there is no surprise that during the lifespan or during the evolutionary period of all species, all species gain more phylogenetic and higher phylogenetic attention level. They are more attentive to details and they are more responsive to the changes, to the minor changes in the environment. Okay? But so far I have spoken about the attentions that are important for survival of animals. And human beings also need to be mindful about those what are part of attention as well. For example, many of the clients that come to the clinic might say, my child doesn't understand the concept of danger. He might leave us, we must leave up our hand and jump into the street without caring about the approaching car. Yes? And then you might say that, okay, maybe he doesn't have enough attention to be mindful about the surrounding environment. So risk analysis, risk management, risk appraisal, being aware about the surrounding environment and its danger, all are about survival, survival benefits. Yep. But there are still other higher level functions of attention that we can talk about and discuss it today. For example, in the left picture, you will see bubbles, and in the right picture, you will see a chess. So a shift from randomness or chaotic and random and full of entropy in these bubbles, that the direction of the movement is fully randomly, to the chess movement and structure, that there is a defined movement or a defined permission of movement or allowance for each of these pins. Okay, so when you see from bubble and that chaotic or randomness to that organized structure in chess, you can see a little child at the age of 2 loves playing bubbles. And when that person grows up, the brain demands higher level of structure, organization, and attention span. So he might get attracted to some board games like chess with plenty of rules. Okay? So it's a topic about entropy. So entropy is a very great topic, which is a kind of philosophic topic as well. The whole mechanism in the human being and also in any other living organism is to fighting with the entropy. So entropy means maximum possibility and potential of randomness. So entropy means that you are going to lose, you are going to let it go. The whole process of aging, the whole process of becoming old and then, God forbidden, dying and returning back to the soil and being the food of worms is entropy. That you will be dissolved, and you will be divided into several pieces after dying, after death, and it is called entropy process. So every living organism needs maintaining and holding energy to fight back entropy power. Entropy is the nature power, it's a natural power that has a tendency for chaos, tendency for randomness. And we need to spend lots of energy and effort and attempt and attention to fight back with that entropy. Okay? So many of the tasks or things that we do is against randomness and has a purpose. They are goal-oriented and result-oriented. That's why when we are going to speak or talk or ask a child to cooperate with us, we should find a solution. Somehow we should play with them to attract the tendency to randomness on one hand, and moving from play toward more structured or organized settings which are going to be expected in later years of their life. So it's the whole thing about attention and the challenges. Many of the things might impact attention for children, and I know that for many of the families or the practitioners that um, are working with children with a special needs in a specific, so um, they will see that, okay, my child at the age of 4, 5, 11, 15, a child is child, no matter how child it is, how young or old she is or he is. They might say, I'm worried about his attention. But the next thing that I want to mention about is that when we are talking about this topic, when we talk about concentration, we need to measure if it is a matter of fitness or not. For example, if there is a child in a rural and suburban area, and the role model or the whole neighborhood, the parents, the neighbors, the relatives have studied till grade 6, and all of them are having a job at a nearby farm and harvesting tomato, for example. And it's one of the guaranteed job that the child, when becoming 12, can start helping mom or dad harvesting tomato. And it is a guaranteed job that years after years, all families and generations have been busy with this farm services in the rural area. And no one has expected that child to get a university degree, for example. And so if that child deals with some sort of attention issues that didn't let him have a great performance at school, or if that child wasn't successful in solving mathematic questions, it's not as big deal as when a child in an urban industrial center or a mega city like Toronto is in a consistent and constant competition amongst with the other peers. There are plenty of social comparisons between the parents, relatives. There are lots of other role models around them, lots of other expectations. So two children in two different environments based on the importance level of the activities or based on their future life might be attributed as enough attention or serious concerns in attention. Okay? Two children with same quality of attention because of difference in the environment might be attributed so. So when we talk about attention, we need to make sure we are talking about a fitness between the person, the child, the environment in which the child is supposed to operate or perform some activity, and the level of difficulty of that activity. Not only level of difficulty of that activity, but also the level of importance of that activity to the child, the level of attraction of that activity for the child, so that the child might feel, do I like to do that task? Am I fully motivated to do this? Many of the families come to me and say, my child is very great in attention, but he is very selectively performing. For example, when he is fully playing with the Legos, and after I recalled him for several times as if he is fully deaf and he cannot hear me at all. And we are doubting whether he hears at all or not. If he hears a jingling of a car key and he realizes that I'm leaving home, he just turned his head and looked at us and said, Daddy, let's go. Daddy, let's go. Daddy, Daddy, let's go. Park. And then you will see, wow, this child is fully motivated to pay attention to the jingling sound of a car key because it associates park, ice cream, seesaw, and sliding. But on the other situations, when a father is calling the child is assuming that, oh, my child is going to ask me to sit and practice tracing, and I hate tracing, or my mom is going to ask me to eat food, and I don't want to eat food now, I don't want to sit at the table. So he prefers, or maybe even unconsciously, he doesn't have enough motivation to be mindfully vigilant about his name being heard, okay, or called. So there are the things about attention, motivation, how it impacts the child's attention span. So the rule number one that we learn is entropy and the fight back with the entropy with gaining attention. Rule number two is about attention is a matter of fitness between the desired activity which is supposed to be performed, fitness between that activity, environment, and the personal capacity of the person, of the child. So we have four types of activities that can help boost our attention. Yes, we just briefly point to them in a slides and jump into the tips for parents, and I'm ready for having a Q&A afterward. So some some reasons that children don't have good attention is related to the sensory issues, sensory processing issues. And the activity that we can expect or we can work with kids are sensory-based activities. The other type is about motor activities, then focus exercise, and then structured play. So these four types or categories of activity can be a very great guideline for us how to mix and match one or two of each category and make a kind of a strand or make, let's say, kind of circuit. And by that circuit training, we can ask the child to practice a little animal walk, a little puzzle, a little building the blocks, and then moving forward to the next step. So for the sensory part, I know that all of you have plenty of ideas, but I just want to refer a few of them, like deep pressure activities, beer hard, rolling with therapy balls, and also jumping on trampoline, swinging. And I want to add a few other more to this. For example, if you ask your child to creep and crawl on the floor, or if you ask the child to imagine that um, he is going to um, play a role of a snake and going to creep on the floor and discreetly move from one end of the room to the other end. Or if you are about to ask the child to, to put on a costume, for that costume, maybe you ask the child to play the role of Superman, jumping from one corner to the other corner, jumping from one couch to the other, sofa to the sofa, or the other thing like this. Or many of other sensory activities that like being carpet, that you ask your child to walk on a carpet filled and coated with plenty of beans or tiny sized Legos, walking barefoot on that. Or if you ask your child to play with the Play-Doh or clay, or if you ask your child to squeeze the wet sponge so that all the water in the sponge get drained, or many, many other activities that are sensory activities, let the child be more mindful about the sensory processing. And many of the reasons that a child is dealing with attention issues have some sort of sensory issues. And by working on sensory activities, we can remove those obstacles from the path of development of the child, path of attention development. So there are plenty of sensory activities. But I want to suggest you something important. When you work sensory activities with the child, you just try to have a steady diet. Okay? Do not provide sensory activities without specific or certain number. Okay? We can say we do it 5 times, then we sit at the table for another round of seated task or focus-based activities. Okay? Again, we get back to playing and shooting the ball for 5 times. Again, we sit back at the table and for doing some other focused activity. The whole purpose of sensory activities is that the child learns all sensory, emotional, cognitive, and psychological needs should be maintained and addressed at the same time. And you, as a respectful person, as a respectable person, deserve to benefit from diverse range and categories of activities to address each aspect. If you solely pay attention to sensory activities, your child becomes easily overwhelmed, and these kind of activities are not going to help your child maintaining sustained attention and maintaining concentration. Most of the time, sensory activities are good for improvement in vigilance, selective attention, and sometimes as a rewarding activity right after sustained attention. So it could be a good motivation for the child. By providing the sensory activity, the child is readier to sit at the table and do the attention-centered function in a more prolonged way. So we cannot expect sensory activities to fix attention issues, but we can expect that these sensory activities remove the sensory obstacles and the person can have a general attention with a better quality and for a longer time. What general attention, okay? Not that specific attention, which is called concentration. So for the stated task, for the tasks that are more goal-oriented, for the tasks that need combination of attention and memory and organization of task and start, and not getting tired of paying attention and problem-solving thing, we need concentration. As if we concentrate all our attention over a specific topic in a specific time. It is called concentration, which is a thinner canal inside the bigger and wider canal of general attention, yeah? So the sensory activities are spoken. Now about the motor activities or physical activities that consist of lots of things about playing soccer, shooting the ball, tree pose, downward dog to calm the mind, or crab walk, animal walk, many of the things that you can play. Last week we had some workshop about sports-based activities. Many of those sports-based activities can be helpful. Many of the activities that helping bilateral integrity or coordination of the body part to each other, biking, and also doing them in a right timing, then being mindful about surrounding environment is a key. For example, why I mean so? For example, you are asking your child to bike from one location to another. And in the meantime, you can ask the child that in the meantime that you are biking, I need you to be mindful about three rules. Rule number one, we only ride the bike in the designated area related to biking. Rule number two is that every 10 minutes you should park your bike somewhere and sip two, two sips of water from your water bottle. Place your water bottle back to the designated place in the bike and start off another round of 10 minutes biking. Rule number three, I need you to pay attention to all traffic signals and respectfully respect the traffic rules, standing or waiting behind all stop signs when pedaling the bike. So these three things together are important for the mental health and physical health and well-being of a child. And in the meantime, they are purposeful and meaningful, and it needs attention span when the child is riding a bike. Okay? So in fact, the way you can mix and match the activities together is very important. In the meantime that a child is playing soccer, that he is mindful about the sound of the timer, or that he is mindful about the number of goals, the number of times that he has scored a goal or he has received a goal, the number of times that a person or the counterpart made a foul on him. A few rules about if I made a foul, every three fouls is equivalent of one penalty. And if you touch the ball with hand, the penalty is so. And if the ball hits the wall and bounce back, you should never shoot it again. You should wait till your counterpart hold it. So there are many, many things like this that you can add to a motor activity and enrich it with some attention-centered things. Sometimes children want to collaborate and cooperate with you when making rules, and please invite them to participate in this as well. So next thing is about structured play for attention, and it's important. Okay, so cognitive and structure. So we say that structured play for attention, like many of the games that we in clinic do and perform as well. It could be a musical chair, for example, musical chair that you are mindful about the sound of music and you are about to sit on a chair whenever the music stopped or whenever the sound is stopped, or having a plan to turn around the chairs as close to the chair as possible, not to miss your spot. Yes? Or playing bingo, being vigilant about the voice of the person reading a number, and also being vigilant about the numbers in your empty card that you need to fill with to make a strand and then say bingo, or matching card or memory thing or Simon say, or many of the activities in the board game that are structured play for attention. For most of the time, I feel that we have made the topic of attention in a very complicated explanation, like, yes, self-working memory affected this, and then this, and then this come, and then affected, impacted. and in a very complicated process or mechanism, it affects slow. But to be honest, if a child enjoys being amongst a group, and if a child is given enough opportunity for a group which is well structured and the level of difficulty of the task or activities are just right challenging to the child's potential level, sooner or later, after 1, 2, 3, maximum 4 sessions, the child starts learning from the environment and learning about how to intentionally pay attention. And it is very important to give enough time to the child to learn the acquisition process of attention. It is a very important thing. I just talk about cognitive activities as well, and then I switch to the intention. Intention part is one of the biggest and more important part of the today's workshop. So for cognitive activities for attention, many of the families, when it comes to the fact of talking about the topic of attention, they mean so. They mean some seated task and doing some activity, working on concepts, differences, size, shape, sorting, matching, classification, categorization, and the things like that that are called mostly cognitive or academic, or the activities that are good academic preparation purposes behind. So there are things like jigsaw puzzle for problem solving, matching. So they are the thing. And for a child who is good at seated tasks and sitting at the table and working on them, the only thing that you need to be mindful about before providing the cognitive activities is that you should measure the length of tolerance level, how long the child is tolerant to be cooperative with you and sit at the table. If you feel that the child is tolerant about 5 minutes, it is fair to give him a break at the 4 minute and 30 seconds. So 4 minutes, 30 seconds, just 30 seconds before the child leaves off the table. You should order him to go for a break. And you can offer him some motor activities for attention, some sensory activities for attention, and then you can ask him to get back to some cognitive activities for another round. This is a very important part of cognitive activities that you need to be mindful about the body language of the child, the signs that are sending the signal that I'm a little warm. And when I was back home and I was teaching in university, a very funny, the very funny moments that I experienced almost every session and aligned with the children, aligned with the students, aligned with the university students, that they used to say, "Ustad khasta nabashin, Ustad khasta nabashin," and then kept saying it in a very funny way, even when at least in the halfway of the class, at least no, the 2 hour class just. And after the first hour class is passed, they started saying, "خسته نباشین, خسته نباشین." And I had to say, "شما هم خسته نباشین," and I had to continue. I hate that position for ignoring the respectful signal of respectful and naughty way of, it was so sweet and cute as well. Respectful, naughty, cute way of making fun and making fun memories there. They were eager to learn more and more, but they just wanted kind of some break. And sometimes the topic is so interesting to me because I already know the topic, but for the student who is about to learn it, the pace of my speech might be much faster than the pace of the processing. So it's another important rule that for a child who is about to learn some cognitive activity or process, you that know the activity have enough control and mastery over the activity, so you have higher level of tolerance for serious task at that game. But for your child who is about to practice holding and remaining attention or holding attention on that task, it's very harder for him to stay attended, to the task. So Ustad Hassan Abushin was just a signal for having a break, mentioning that, Ustad, we know that you are not going to terminate the session right now, but I just want to make a fun so that we laugh at the end of the salon, and I wish you can accompany with us and make a fun out of that, or say a memory, tell a memorial about the thing, tell a memory about one day that, you know, and clinic, what happened, was telling a story or little tale to us. Yes, I guess every person needs such breaks after a long term of working on attention. So the topic about environmental modification is one of the other ones that I wanted to mention very briefly. Sometimes I'm invited as a practitioner to have a home visit or assessment in home and checking the home atmosphere, and also, yes, running some observation among the dynamics of relationship in home. And when I most of the time when I get invited to the room of the child, I feel that, wow, the child is a rich child. He is so provided. He is so benefiting from plenty of diverse toys, materials, equipment, devices, and, and the room is very full of many things that are distracting the child, and it's a cluttered environment for a child that doesn't let the child to stay focused on anything. So one important environmental modification is to make sure that you should design and decorate the room based on your child's attention level. If your child's attention span is too low, the number of the things you should place in the room should be a little, should be only 4 or 5 items. But if your child is like a teenager with huge deal of attention span, maybe he himself has the right to decorate it the way he likes, or even adding or pasting some uh, poster on the wall, some slogan, anything, writing on the wall, anything as a teenager. Okay, so there are plenty of diversity in this topic, but environmental modification isn't neat. For many of the fitted tasks, the light, the temperature, that the table or desk should be ergonomically designed, they are important. And maybe the last slide right now is these 5 things about the tips. But the second tip is the most important one to me, to explain it and expand it. Because the other ones are almost pointed to during the work, during the slide. But that the second point, which is about shift back technique, is the thing that I want to share with you, and is one of my insights. Look, for years of practice, I used to believe that a responsible practitioner or caregiver is the one that should remind the child to get back to the task whenever the child shows any minor distraction. But after many years of working with children, I have reached to this conclusion or summarization, that the children deserve more opportunity or longer time so that they learn how responsibly shift back to the task just before we remind them. It's very important term. I explain it in an example, and then I hope that we can have kind of we can if you had a question, we can continue discussing it in the Q&A part as well. Just imagine that a child is asked to write tracing. For example, tracing letter A for 5 times. After writing 2 letter A's, your child who is playing and fidgeting and shaking one of the foot under the desk, the foot might hit a book and the book might fall off the shelf. So the child unwantedly dropped the book off the shelf, and it's very natural that then the child might stop tracing and have a quick look at the book which is fallen off the floor, fallen on the floor. Then therapist number 1 decides to say, continue writing letter A, tracing. Or therapist number 2 might decide to pause, wait to see what the child does. If the child looks at the book which is fallen and then does nothing, has gotten a little distracted and looking everywhere, but hasn't left the table yet, hasn't left the desk yet, but a little distracted, and apparently he is not going to continue doing the tracing. Give that child 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds to see what the next activity the child does. If after 6, 7, 8 seconds the child decides to shift back to tracing, you say, good job, great. It's great that you shifted back to the tracing without my reminding. That's great. You don't need to say all of these sentences. That you can say, good job. Your child might feel that he is appreciated enough for being responsible in sustaining his attention span before being reminded to. And there are some occasions that the child, after 7 or 8 seconds of being distracted, want to leave the desk or go and play with the toy car, or playing with the book, or start reading the book which has been fallen on the floor. So at that time, you should hold the child and have him sit at the table and remind him about the task. So what is the difference between these two? You, in scenario number 2, or therapist number 2, in fact, has shared the responsibility of attention control with the child. Therapist number 1 was the most responsible person that is going to train a lazier kid. A lazier kid who is not going to accept the responsibility of controlling his own attention, as has already outsourced that control of attention to the therapist earlier, and saying that I, like a baby, can walk everywhere and look at everywhere, and whenever it is needed, my therapist or my caregiver is going to remind me to get back to the task. In fact, I am not responsible to be mindful about what I was doing. I can do anything, and by prompting, I will get back to I will get back to this requested activity. In fact, that tracing task has not been my task. It has been my therapist's task. So if he is not happy with the quality or the speed or pace of performance, it is his responsibility to remind me. By doing so, the children are not becoming responsible in maintaining their attention span. Therapists too might be more nervous, might experience more frustrating moments, might feel that, oh my gosh, therapy, being a therapist or being such a mom or dad is really hard, needs lots of patience. We need to trust the child. We can feel that, oh, it's about 5 minutes and the child is still writing one line and is taking time. But therapist number 2 is relaying the signal of trust to the child that I'm here accompanying you and do not let you get too far from the task, but you can wander around, you can be distracted, and you are responsible to shift back your attention to the main desired task. You yourself should do that. Okay? After several times, after several days or weeks of such level of practice or such level of trust you are showing to your child, you gradually will see that, wow, my child needs less number of prompting or redirection. And he can get back to the task even in cluttered room, even in noisy background, even amongst a group of other peers in a very noisy classroom setting. My child has learned how to shift back to the task. So it is natural to get distracted. So every environment might trigger many situations that you might get temporarily distracted. And it is a kind of survival mechanism that we need to be responsive to many changes in the environment to protect ourselves. So we cannot fight with that part of the brain. But the other part of the brain, which is going to responsibly take a plan and take the responsibility, is to get back to the task after getting distracted. And it is one of the most important strategy or behavioral strategy any child needs to have so the child can be a good student in future or being able to have more prolonged, sustained attention. So the other thing that I wanted to mention about the topic of attention, now it is 8:38. We started this workshop with about 8 or 10 minutes delay. Now it's the time for Q&A. If you have any question, please feel free to ask. And thank you very much for taking time and spending your Thursday evening with me. So thank you. And now I'm going to stop recording.